What's up, everyone? This is Ryan, and I'm joined with my co-host Connor, and this is Voices from Corners Unknown, episode 13. It's been a little bit since our last episode. I was out in Wyoming for a bit, and still trying to just get back into the groove of things over here. This is our first episode, in a few weeks or close to a month now, right? It's been a little bit. Yeah, so kind of shaking off the rust here a little bit. But I think we have a pretty darn good episode. We got some hardcore punk, some sludgy, doomy grind, and then we also got some almost otherworldly ritual ambience. So a nice smattering of sounds and albums to explore here. So we have of the three albums. So on that hardcore punk one, we're going to be speaking about Campaign Committee's album titled Bill of Rights, an EP that came out in June or just last month. We'll also be talking about Secret Cutter's album Quantum Eraser, and the other album, the Ritual Ambient one, is the self-titled debut, I believe, of the Greek duo titled Martyria, and that album came out in January of this year. So, a bit late, but I'm glad we're going to be talking about this one. So, yeah. So, where do you want to start the conversation with this?
Let's dive into Bill of Rights by Campaign Committee.
All right. Yeah, so this is a good one. It's kind of funny because the guys sent me along the EP some odd number of weeks ago, and then you ended up stumbling upon it randomly, right, on Bandcamp search, and I told them, and they're like, "Oh shit, look at that!" So, how did you? Were you just doing like the Bandcamp search because you did a small write up for them for the auditory reflections, right?
Yeah, it's when we were doing those auditory reflections. I was just kind of going through bands, and like I had like an absurd amount of bands I actually liked. Mm-hmm. It was weird. On Bandcamp, I was like, "Oh, I like this one. I like this one."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Kept finding stuff I liked, which was really cool. But
yeah,
these guys stood out. And
what was it about it that kind of struck you first? Like, what was it that you were like, "Oh, I like kind of hooked you or grabbed you"?
Well, first off, like I think it was the opening song. I think I was just kind of going through the hardcore punk genre, search thing.
Sure. You're a little inclined to listen to that stuff, right? Like you kind of have a, I don't want to say soft spot, but you're into the hardcore punk stuff quite a bit, right?
Yeah. I think it's the punk part of it. I don't know. And
yeah.
that's like a more recent thing too.
Interesting. But, yeah. Because I definitely do dig the hardcore punk stuff, but I know you're into like melodic death metal and things of that sort, but I still don't have like a full idea of your palette.
I don't even know my palette. But these guys just kind of caught my eye and my ears. And
sweet. So it was the opening track. Okay. Yeah, so this album, as I briefly glossed over, so this one came out just a few weeks ago, so June 22nd of 2018. Really succinct 5-track EP, and they're from Boston, Massachusetts, and they're a hardcore punk outfit, a 4-piece, and they, I don't know the exact date the band was incepted when they kind of came to be, but their first album, another EP, came out March 2016, and it's titled Let's Die. And when I saw that, I was like, man, I know I'm going to like these guys, because I feel like that all the time. I'm like, yeah, let's just go with it. And
that's
then,
our motto.
Yeah, it is. And then last year, so since then, they put out a split with a band named Psychic Weight, and they, I believe, contributed 2 tracks to that, and that came out July of 2017. So not a whole lot of songs available by these guys yet. I really don't know how their workflow is and such, but this is like their second EP, so it's kind of like their second official release in a way, but they've also done a split between each of these EPs. So, yeah, that's some background. You want to jump into the music? What, like, kind of maybe describe what struck you a bit about that opening track?
First off, I kind of want to talk about the band's name and then the album.
Sure.
The cover and title.
Sure.
I'm getting definitely like some political vibes here.
Yes. Yes.
And maybe like, because the album cover is a guy with a blindfold on. He's kind of dressed up, business casual.
Right.
And he's holding like a sparkler.
Oh, yep. It seems to almost be. It seems to almost have been released just in time for like the 4th of July, like intentionally released just before it, right?
Yeah,
or something of the sort.
Exactly. And I don't know if I'm reading into it too much, but I kind of get the vibe that it's kind of like, American politicians have no idea what they're doing, and they just are blindly kind of just jumping into stuff and not really caring what happens.
Sure, like a patriotism of some sort, or kind of like they're like the blind celebration of the I could see that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But who knows? I feel like that might be what it is, but
yeah, it's interesting to bring that up, because when you look at, like, say the titles of the songs of these 5 tracks, I would think, the first track, as we'll probably talk about a bit in depth, it's titled "Let's All Say We're Nihilists, Then Cry When No One Likes Us." That seems to be relatively, like, tangentially related to kind of the theme, but like the other songs, they have a song called like "Souvenir" and "Fledgling," like, I don't know, it's not as full frontal, at least. And the problem is, I wasn't able to find lyrics for these tracks, and I can't understand, like, in certain parts I can understand the lyrics, but for the most part, the lyrics, I'm kind of like, oh, geez, I listened to it probably 10, 15 times, and I'm kind of like, I don't know exactly what's going on, so it's hard to speak to the actual lyrics and what they're hitting on. But I think that's a good observation you made with the artwork. But I'll shut up for the time being. And
but yeah, the opening track, first off, that title, "Let's All Say We're Nihilists, Then Cry When No One Likes Us."
Yes.
I dig that title.
Yes, I dig it a lot too. I thought, that's a great track title.
A nice little use of words. But,
yes.
There's kind of 2 different vocal styles going on throughout this album. It's like that really grimy, hardcore, just intense screaming, and then there's kind of a more, punkish growl yelling.
Right.
And
right.
Yeah, that opening track is just so strange in many different ways.
Yeah, like it's it's hard to say exactly what it is about this that I find so compelling. It's such like a weird clash, kind of like the way the guitar work, like there's kind of like that little melodic undercurrent going on, or there's kind of like a more upbeat rhythm to it, but the way the vocals kind of just grate against it, because the main vocalist, I think I described this once when we were just like talking offhand somewhere else, and I almost like equated to like it almost sounds like some really fried out like black metal vocals, kind of like these really gargly, and it's something that it took me a second to really get used to, but I kind of appreciate it in that it really kind of just catches you off guard, and it kind of, I don't know, I like the stuff where it kind of breaks what you would typically expect, because if it was just general shouting, you'd be like, okay, hardcore punk band, move on to the next thing. But the vocals kind of kept me on board, just because I was like, this is a really weird clash of sounds. Yeah, so the vocal style, I would say, though, for some folks who are into hardcore punk, it may not be your thing. It may be a bit of a rub for some folks, I would think. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't mind them at all. I think that they're pretty interesting. I haven't.
I think I added a whole different element to this.
Yeah,
it definitely kind of set it apart from other hardcore punk, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I do love in the first track, the "Let's All Say We're Nihilists," the one bit where they kind of have that little the riff kind of has this nice little, to me it has like this little upbeat bit, and then about halfway through the song it kind of fizzles out, and then the guy, the other vocalist who doesn't do like the more croaky vocals, I think he kind of just starts like they kind of make the beat of the song go with like
da,
the
da, 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 da.
yeah, like and it sounds like he's kind of like whining, so he's almost like imitating somebody that's like whining because somebody doesn't like them, and then they turned that into like the melody of the song almost, and they kind of
It's
roll into it. I was like,
hilarious.
I laughed at that. I was like, man, that is freaking great. Like,
There's even the part where the guy's like, "Oh, this is my favorite part," and
Yeah.
then he starts singing it too, and it's like, da, 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 da.
yeah, it's excellent. I thought that was, yeah, that song. I think that's a good way to open the EP, and it's a very short track, and it's only 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's a fun one too.
Yeah, and it gives you it kind of builds what you can expect from the rest of it. It does go into some interesting places as it progresses, but that song I think is a pretty hilarious way to I don't know. I just love how they just kind of took that little whining bit almost and just wrapped it into the song. It flowed so well. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and then the next track, the 3 haikus and a tangent thought.
Yeah.
I think it slowed it down a little, and there's just
Yes.
these grimy just bass lines in the background.
Yeah, the bass is really like omnipresent. The way, like it really punches throughout the listen. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, the bass was definitely one of my highlights of this album for sure.
Yeah, and I like at the end of that track, there's like kind of like this cool little, almost like this hopeful, ethereal moment near the end of it. It's, and that's where I'm trying to get at a little bit. I sound a little scatterbrained when talking about this, but you know, they kind of have some of the more what you would expect from a hardcore punk, you know, kind of, I don't know, kind of like more punchy, visceral, like throat ripping kind of hardcore punk, like just what you would expect from that. But then they just kind of like work in these interesting these textures. I don't know, like that little ethereal moment. It kind of has like this nice melodic wispiness to it. And I don't know, it adds a really nice dynamic to it, and it makes it a lot more palatable and more engaging, I think.
Yeah, they do a lot of like tempo changes and just
Yes.
the melodies like switch back and forth and stuff too throughout every track.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of makes it hard to describe though. Like I had
It
problems
does.
like kind of putting into words.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think in the track "Desperate Places," which is the third one, that I really liked in that one. There are some neat moments where the guitar work is kind of, and please, folks, don't rip me a new one over this because I don't have the technical vernacular for this, but like when the guitar is it kind of goes into this moment where the guitar is kind of just like suspending its notes for a little bit, and then like kind of you can like hear the bass, and it sounds like it's almost kind of like frantically kind of moving around within it as the guitar kind of just like rings out solemnly, or it kind of, you know what I mean, like it kind of just rings out like a note is played, but then the bass is kind of doing its own little riff inside of it, and it just makes for a really neat little listen, or some nice dynamics.
Yeah, definitely. I noticed with that track too, like the rest of the album kind of takes like a more darker, almost sadder tone.
Yes, yeah, definitely, yeah.
And then that was the only track where I actually could make out like a solid amount of lyrics.
Sure, yeah.
I think it's like something like "The time has come, there will be death with either her or heart," or something along those lines.
Well, it's all guesswork from us right now.
Right? But yeah, and then there's another part where it's like "left to rot," but it's all I can make out. I wish I had the lyrics to understand kind of what's going on throughout the album more, but.
Yeah, and that's a good bit to bring up too, because when you talked about that where it takes a darker turn, when I listened to that track, "Desperate Places," I definitely felt like this strange sense of sadness starting to kind of well up while listening to it, and that seems to have carried on throughout. I guess we can talk about each track because we're already like
short enough of it.
Yeah, we're already through it, but you know I definitely got that I don't know. I mean, we could talk about each track, but
I got notes for days when
Do
it
you?
comes to what you're about to say, actually, too.
okay, no, go for it. No, please feel free. Let's
Well, yeah. Let's just dive into the next track. Track 4, Souvenir. It's like a more like kind of nice laid back guitar plucking over like kind of washed out drum beats.
Yep.
And then that cool bass. I don't know, the bass in these songs are really cool, but that it's kind of in the background. And then the music picks up and everything becomes more aggressive, but it still has that kind of sadder tone.
Right.
And it invokes that weird feeling that I don't know why, because I don't even know what like the guy's screaming about.
Yeah. It could also be just kind of like I don't know, whatever. That's the thing I never understand, like whatever kind of key they're playing in, or like, you know what I mean, like the kinds of notes, like I can't I can't equate all that stuff. But yeah, as you were saying in the beginning bit, there's kind of like this nice ephemeral moment where it kind of has like this tranquility to it. It kind of gives me like, it almost gives me like summer vibes in a way, but like in a depressed way. I don't know, like it kind of makes you like reminisce on like I don't know, maybe it like makes like it kind of makes me reminisce on like a bit of the simpler times, you know, because like summertime always depresses me for whatever fucking reason.
Yeah. Well, when you're a kid, you know, summertime.
It's like the best time, right?
You didn't have to work.
Right. And now, and it's like summer is just another, you know, it's just another season. It's just like
now it's the
miserable.
same thing, but
right.
It's hot.
And it's an interesting, there's some interesting juxtaposition there, and I think in the final track, fledgling, goddamn, when like kind of like that depression, like kind of like that depressed sound, like those depressed timbers really start to emerge, or that's when it kind of
like
fully,
full,
like it kind of fully embraces it by its end.
Actually, a couple days ago, I was on the way to work, and I'm just sitting there in traffic, and it was kind of gloomy out. And this, like, I was listening to this
really?
album, and it got to this song, and I'm almost there. I'm like, dude, I don't want to like go to work today. Like, I just felt like helpless and just really sad, like with this track for some reason.
Yeah, it's like it's nice and sunny outside almost, and you just want to close your blinds and just kind of shut the world out, or some weird
go into the void.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that's a really great track, and I think on the whole this is a pretty great EP. I enjoy it a lot, and I'm glad the band sent this along to me, and I'm glad that you found it and wrote about it as well.
Pretty cool coincidence for sure.
Yeah, it's a neat coincidence, and I think it really helps solidify that we should talk about this. All right, next we're going to talk about the Ritual ambient self-titled debut from Martyria. I could be pronouncing that incorrectly. I'm sure that there are a decent or a handful of ways you can pronounce that. But this duo, well, I guess I kind of gave a bit of a rundown of Campaign Committee. Do you have some background info on these guys?
Yeah, the album was released on January 8th, 2018, like you said earlier. So we're a little late, but it's definitely worth talking about.
Yep.
And they're a duo from Greece that formed in 2015.
Yep.
And it's this crazy combo of ritualistic instruments, as they say, and chants.
Right.
And that just kind of, it's mind-blowing with all the different chants and hums and of the vocals, dude. Like, we've never kind of dealt with this.
No, and I think that this sort of dark ambient, ritual ambient certainly exists, but it's definitely some new terrain that we're treading here. And so the names, I believe it's George and Lena. I think that those are the names of, I could be enunciating that wrong as well, but those are that's the duo. And so this is kind of their debut LP, and then since they've put this out, they've also put out a couple compilation tracks. So they contributed a track to an Eighth Tower Records compilation titled In Tenebris Scriptus, which is an oral tribute to H.P. Lovecraft. And they also put out another They debuted a new track titled Epiclesis on the webzine This Is Darkness, and that's part of another compilation released by Kalpamantra, and it is titled The Portrait of Mortality. So they seem, since this has come out, I mean, only about 7 months ago, they're already, they seem to be continually churning out new work. So even though that they were established back in 2015, it took them a little while to release this, but I think it's a very well realized effort, and it's pretty dense. Like, there's a lot of really neat stuff in here, a lot of like instruments that I'm honestly not familiar with. And this is kind of a learning process for us, I guess, because they have like didgeridoo.
That didgeridoo, though.
Yeah, and they have a drum called an abendir, I believe, and that's like a specific drum. I can't recall exactly where, what it's like, what culture it's local to. But these folks, I read a short interview with them on this magazine. I'm not trying to laugh at the name of the magazine, but it's called Peekaboo Music Magazine. I thought it was kind of a cute name for a magazine, for an online magazine. But they described their chants as trying to not mimic or imitate, but kind of to be in the same vein as like Byzantine chants.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So that's what they said they were going for in their description, So that dates back to I guess that dates back to like the Middle Ages, kind of like just after the Roman Empire. Yeah. So that's what they're going for. That's kind of what their chants are. I don't think that I think it's just it's just influenced by, like, they're trying to, they develop their own chants. It's not like they're using, they just kind of invoke and they use their own words and such. And I don't really know what they're saying. It's not clear, but yeah, if you like dark ambient and a lot of interesting instruments, kind of worldly instruments, I think that there's a lot to dig into here. So what do you, what'd you think of this one, man?
I thought it was great. I mostly listened to it like before bed, and
yes,
it's just such like a relaxing thing overall. But
it's relaxing, but it also is, the more I intently listen to it, because I listen to records a handful of times where it's like I'll listen a number of times like passively while I'm doing something else, and then I'll sit down and focus on it. And when I really sit down and focus on it, it's a pretty creepy album in some parts.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
at least like the second half.
Yeah. It gets creepy. Dark, yeah, but I love it. Yeah. But do you want to talk about some specific tracks, or are there specific tracks that really kind of got under your skin?
Yeah, I mean, we can start with the first one.
Sure.
Logos. I just love how, like, it's so vocally driven.
Yes.
That you almost have, like, the deeper male chants as the drone in this.
Yeah, it kind of creates the backdrop of the entire... It kind of builds the foundation, almost, of the track in this one, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the mixture of all the different, like, male chants, and then the female ones come in. And they just kind of like work with each other, and you got those nice drum beats in the background.
Yeah, that was something that really kind of caught my ear throughout the album when they brought in kind of like that dense pounding drum, but it didn't create. I mean, it created a bit of a rhythm, but it was so primordial and sparse that it kind of I don't know. It really kind of like took you under into like its dark depths.
And like that first track actually reminds me of the CD my dad used to play on to like hiking trips and stuff on the way there.
Interesting.
It was like some strange meditative thing, but yeah, this stuff is cool.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. Yeah. No,
I
really
can remember who the artist was for that, but similar stuff for sure.
We can make an amendment or drop it in the write-up later on, maybe if you can happen to recall it. Yeah, and I really like the opening track, and the second one, I believe it's pronounced, I actually don't know, Numa, I believe Pneuma.
Fucking do.
Yeah, that didgeridoo, the deep bellowing didgeridoo is. I don't think I've listened to enough of it, but when I heard that, I was
I've never
so
heard it in something like this.
No, neither have I, and it really grabbed my attention. It really hit me, like just how deep and bellowing and just it's so good.
At one point, it even becomes kind of like a didgeridoo.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what makes this whole album interesting when they're kind of crafting these, unfurling these really deep drones. You like sometimes like as you said in the first track, Logos, it's obvious that they're kind of building a drone with the male vocals. But then in certain tracks, it's like you listen to those and you're like, I wonder if that's just electronic explicitly, or if they like just manipulated the hell out of some instruments and kind of create it into a drone. Like it's kind of hard to tell, and it makes it really interesting to listen to. I think like you're trying to figure out exactly how they constructed that drone, and I don't know. Maybe it's obvious to more trained ears, and we're just naive as hell. But I don't know.
So ignorant.
Right, but we're learning, right? I mean, at least that's what I like to tell myself.
You're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, but then there's also in that Pneuma song that weird. Did you ever figure out what like that weird twanging?
Oh, like the rubber band sounding thing.
Yeah, like was that like a harp? Like, do you know what kind of instrument that was? It was such a
definitely. I tried to find it. I've definitely heard it in other kind of folky sounding stuff, like folk music in general, and like I've heard it a lot in folk metal.
Right,
but
right.
I totally forget the name. Yeah, that thing. It's a very interesting sounding instrument.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the parts of the whole album where I don't want to say it. I mean, it stood out to me because it definitely was a lot stranger relative to all the other sounds. Like it was pretty, I don't know, like it's definitely like a little standout moment, I think, in the entire scope of the album, because it's kind of really twangy, and it not to say it doesn't fit, it just has a very strange sound mixed with kind of the didgeridoo and the really sepulchral, just all the chants that are kind of going on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I found that this track, the Pneuma one, just like I kind of sat there and just started like letting it wash over me, and I found it like pretty transcendental in a weird way too. Like it just seems to like have this weird transport, like it just kind of like transported me in this strange way. Like it kind of got me on edge a little bit, kind of tensed me up, but it also made me feel pretty relaxed at the same time. I don't know why, but
I mean, have you ever actually tried to play a didgeridoo?
No, I imagine it's hard as all shit, though.
Oh, yeah, like, my dad had one when I was growing up. I don't know what happened to it, but I was so bad at it, because you kind of got to, like, pucker your lips like it's a, I don't know, just like a trombone or something like that. Mm-hmm. And kind of blow and do some weird stuff for your throat. And
aren't you supposed to like circulate air through like your nostrils so you can keep going? Yeah. See, I think I tried it maybe once, and I'm just like, nope, can't do it.
Well, I remember at the time I had braces, and for some reason I couldn't pucker my lips in the right way.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. This album kind of inspires me to want to like learn it or go find more ritual ambient or more ambient music with this kind of stuff in
cool
it.
Instruments.
Yeah, and I think so. In the third track, so this is only 5 tracks, but when you're listening to it, each track gets longer. So the first track's like 5 minutes 10 seconds, and then by the last track it's like almost 12 and a half minutes. So it kind of incrementally augments. But I really liked the Necros song, and because that one is more, I like that in juxtaposition with the first 2 tracks, because that one definitely takes on just more of a dark ambient atmosphere.
It's more traditional feeling.
Yeah, and I think that it's like a nice counterpoint to some of the, and that's not to say that I disliked anything in the first 2 tracks. It's just it's a nice way to kind of not be so over reliant on one instrument. It shows a lot of diversity and range in this group's or in this duo's ability. Like it's pretty amazing, honestly, because that song is about 8.5 minutes. I found it to be really ominous, and that there still are some chants that come in there, but the first 3.5 minutes, it's just kind of this ominous, bleak, Stygian swell of dark ambient atmosphere, and it just kind of broods, and then you start to get some chants like this, kind of like this yawning, lethargic chant kind of starts to slowly crawl out of the mist. And then I think there's a bit of a nice little, like a slow pummeling drum that kind of just starts, just kind of beats. It doesn't have much of a rhythm, but it just kind of bellows out, and it just makes this really nice. I don't know. It works together so well with the entire thing. It just kind of makes it so primordial. I don't know. It's very tantalizing. I really like it.
Yeah, I got kind of like an underworld feel to that one. Like
yeah.
Pits of some type of hell, and then there's like these weird flutes. I think I heard too. I don't know.
See, and that's
could be some other sound.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this album interesting too. As you're listening to it, you're like, oh, I wonder what instrument that is, and you kind of listen and re-listen again, and you like try and piece together all the instruments that are going on. And I think it makes it quite rewarding, and it gives it a lot of replayability, which is always good when you're listening to pretty much any kind of music, but especially dark ambient.
Focus on something else every time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you can kind of hone in on it. Yeah, but that track is great, and do you want to talk about either of the other two, the last two?
I mean, I like both quite a bit.
Yeah.
I just like how Nyx is kind of about the primordial goddess of night.
Yes.
Greek goddess.
Yeah, that's something.
So I kind of had that vibe the whole time. This kind of, cloaked, hooded goddess kind of withering through the night.
Right. Yeah. No, I really like that. And I think in that track, too, there's some really neat use of, like, these kind of like distorted or fragmented wisps of vocals that started to like craft like this weird ethereal mist.
Creepy.
Yeah, and that's like that's what I'm saying. Like as it seems to go along, it just seems to kind of spiral down darker into into just like these pitch black depths of your soul almost. Yeah, and I think in that track too, there's a nice. In addition to kind of like those wisps, there's kind of these nice, you get some more rhythmic drum pulsing that kind of just, kind of creeps out a little bit. And then you get some sustained droning chant, and it seems to kind of infinitely cast out of this ether. It just kind of goes and goes. And I'm sure, I actually don't know. Sometimes I wonder if they kind of take a snippet of a drone, they just kind of like copy paste it, so it sounds like it's infinite, or if the guy is just sustaining his voice for that long, because if he is, that's pretty amazing too. I can't tell, but I really like that aspect of it. Yeah, but that track, I think, as you were describing, it's a pretty barren track as well. Like it's pretty like devoid, I think it kind of all works together, because I looked a tiny bit into the Greek goddess or Nyx or whatever. Per Wikipedia, so it's probably not the best source. Yeah, but it said something, to the effect of like, how she stood at or near the beginning of creation and mothered other personified deities like Hypnos, Thanatos, and Erebus. And I don't know, it kind of just gave me this dark, dreadful, barren, like edge of time, like nothing has really been developed yet. Like it just kind of gives you that feeling of being isolated in just like a black space. And
then she's the one that kind of created the bad things in life. Mm-hmm. I love sleep though.
Yeah, we'll see.
Darkness.
Yeah. See, and you probably know more about this stuff. When I was just like, Nyx, I'm like, who the hell is that? I'm like, Greek goddess. I'm like, man, I can't remember anything about
I'm
Greek.
a mythology nerd.
Yeah, see, I know you are, especially like with the Norse stuff. I love the Norse stuff, but yeah, I'm so out of the loop on this stuff. I need to get back into it. But yeah, you have any? And what about do you have any sentiments on the last track? Or do you want to talk about that at all?
Well, that one is quite the beast being 12 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yes, definitely.
It kind of encompasses, like, you know, a lot of the music we heard.
Yes.
But, yeah, you got all the chants. And then, I don't know how to pronounce it. What is that? Eschaton?
Eschaton, yeah. I think that kind of relates to, like, the end of days, or kind of like the end of humanity, almost. Yeah. So, yeah, like apocalyptic, almost.
Yeah. So, like, knowing that, I kind of envisioned the world crumbling and burning from the inside out.
Yes.
And then towards the end, or the second half, you get these more kind of sad, frightening, eerie female vocals again.
Yeah.
And that's then the male and females come together, and they just create this landscape of just like, whoa.
Yeah. That kind of made my skin crawl a bit in a good way. I'm not saying it in a bad way. I like it when music makes me, you know, it kind of ruffles my feathers a bit. I'm like, oh, gee, you know, kind of like makes me white knuckle it. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some really nice use of, like, some wind as well, kind of like some organic feel to it. It kind of, I don't know, it makes you feel like you're kind of going on this adventure that's leading to your own demise, almost.
Yeah, you kind of hear, like, this clambering through, like, I don't know, brush or forest or something, too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think, in a sense, too, you know, it seems to speak a bit. I mean, per that interview from the Peekaboo mag that I was reading, you know, they mentioned some stuff about the duo themselves. They talked about you know, martyrs, or those who believe in the material world and are suffering for their spiritual beliefs. And I don't know, the eschaton or eschatology, like, it kind of seems to somehow relate to that, kind of like, you know, kind of wandering aimlessly, or kind of wandering through this, you know, through like this barren wasteland, kind of just suffering in the flesh, and almost like by the end of it you feel like you're kind of embracing like the collapse of your bodily function or something like that, and you're kind of giving into like this, like the world, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe I'm talking a bunch of shit. I usually am. But it kind of gave me like this weird spiritual feeling, kind of just like letting go of the flesh, and kind of moving on to another
accepting your death.
yeah. I mean, I'm all about that. But yeah, I think it's a great. I mean, shit, dude. We keep like we always like set out to be like, we're gonna talk about a couple songs per album, and now it's like, oh, we talk about every song.
When it's an EP, we almost talk about the whole thing every time.
But yeah, this I really like. Yeah, I think that this is a pretty superb record. Are there certain, like, are there closing thoughts you have on this one?
No, I think we covered most of it.
Yeah.
It's just definitely a really cool vocal-driven ritual dark ambient album.
Yeah, highly recommend this one. Especially if you want to kind of mix up what you traditionally expect from, say, a dark ambient record. I think this has a lot to offer you in terms of variation and just intrigue. Sweet, and that leaves us with Secret Cutter and their album titled Quantum Eraser. You got some background on these guys, man?
Yeah, they're from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And they are somehow a three-piece band consisting of guitar, drums, and vocals.
Yep.
And they're like a sludgy grind band.
Yes.
And they released Quantum Eraser on July 6, 2018.
Yep.
And I remember hearing like a preview of one of the tracks, and I was just like, dude, I want to hear this whole entire album right now.
Yeah.
And it was worth the wait.
Yeah, definitely. So was it Trampled by Light or something like that? Probably. Or it was just one of the singles.
By Light, I think.
Yeah, what was it about the album that really got you hooked? Because I remember you texting me about it, and you're just like, dude, this album. And I was just like, oh yeah, I've heard of that band, but I haven't really listened to them.
Oh, dude, like these slamming, just heavy guitars,
yes,
just blasting at you,
yes,
the entire length of the album,
yeah,
and it just gets stuck in your head.
Yeah, I'm glad that you say that, because I was literally like, I would listen to this on the way to work, or on the way home from work even, and it always just made me like want to drive a little faster because it just like got me so amped up. And like I would just be sitting or like just walking around just passively benignly, and like the riffs would just like kind of contaminate my thought process. Like there are just certain riffs that I was just like, man, I need to listen to that like right now, just to scratch, like it was just such a, I don't know. But this band, so they're, so as Connor said, they're kind of this amalgamation of sludge grind. It kind of gives me some doomy vibes as well. Just because it's so like certain parts are so slow and plodding. But these guys have been around for a decent bit. So they released an album, I think it's an EP, in August of 2009. So they've been around for nearly a decade at this point. So about coming up on their 9-year anniversary, at least per this release. And that one was titled "If You Don't Hate Yourself, You Aren't Paying Attention," which is a pretty great, kind of reminds me of like that Nihilist song or something like that from like doing a little callback to Campaign Committee, just like the track title. You're just like, oh yeah, like that's a great title.
Yep.
And since that release, they put out a self-titled album in February of 2014. So there's a pretty good gap in there. I wasn't able to do enough research to glean what took them that decent amount of time to release stuff. I'm bands, life, all that kind of stuff. It's probably always complicated just being able to put music together anyway. And I read a small interview on them, and they kind of stated they wanted to, when they first set out to make this band, they wanted to make this kind of a Floor inspired. Floor is like this doom band, and I never heard of them, and I think that they have some relation to the band called Torch, spelled with an E. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but that's kind of where the inspiration came from. The band is just called Floor, and I listened to them recently. They're really fucking good too, and I can see the influence quite heavily. But yeah, that's probably enough on background. Let's how about you take us through a song or two of this one? What was the what really got your attention, and like what did you love about this?
Well, first off, the first track I heard was Trampled by Light, which is the second track on the album. And it's fine. I just like the title of the track too, since I'm a lighting guy for film and all that.
Oh, right.
I'm like, dude, this could be like my new theme song.
Yes,
yes. I tried to read the lyrics, and like they're pretty poetically written, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
You can take a lot from them. Like, for instance, on Trampled by Light, it starts with visions of spots, light forms in the dark, clouds clog your mind, arc flash burns your thoughts, sensitive eyes partial to the sight. I mean, I don't know what that means. You could like take a lot from that in your own thoughts.
Right.
But,
yeah, you probably would never be able to actually understand most of the words, because the lyrics are the words themselves are. I love the vocal delivery. Like they are they sound so unhinged and just so
it's chaotic.
Yeah, it reminds me. I don't think you ever really got into this band, but it kind of reminds me of like early Pig Destroyer in a way. Like they just have this. There's like just like this vociferousness to them where you're just like, it tenses me up when I just think about it, because it's so angry and it's so shrill and so just pissed off. And just each musician, even though they're only, I still can't believe that they're a 3-piece, but like each individual brings so much to make this sound so crushing. It's unreal.
Yeah, and then they sure do create like a feeling of getting trampled by light.
Yes.
Never-ending pounding of just douche.
Right.
Just goes and goes.
Right.
And just sitting there in traffic on my way to work. Dude, it helps. It helps.
It does. Yeah, I equated that one. I felt like, Trampled by Light, like that one feels kind of like a stampede of drum kicks and kind of that, just like that single, just like that riff. It just keeps ringing out, and it just creates this, just like this misanthropic groove. Like the groove is so chunky, and just to think that they can get that sort of a density, and it's just one guitar. Like I thought it was like 2 guitars and a bassist or something like
Right?
that.
Like,
or,
how is that
or
one
guitar and a bass. Yeah. And I was like, there's one guitarist? You've got to be kidding me, right? Like, I could not believe it when I saw that. And then I listened to it, I'm like, yeah, I guess it does sound like one guitar, but god damn, they get it. They get that tone. I don't know how they do it, or they get a shit ton of amps. It comes together so well, though, man.
It's the overall rhythm.
Yes.
It's unbelievably good.
Right. Yeah, so that track is pretty amazing. I think this whole album is pretty superb all the way through. I also really like the Bended Knee, which is the 3rd track.
Yeah.
That's got some nice. They kind of incorporate some little splotches of noise in there. So of course I'm gonna love that because I love shit that just makes your ears bleed. And you kind of get this almost like this like shit show of kind of like ugly riffing and blast beats, you know,
more dirty and
caustic.
caustic.
Yeah, and it's like chaotic, and that's kind of more the grindy influence. And I would say on the whole, like there's definitely grindcore-ish stuff in here, but it does not. It's used sparingly and it's used very well. Like instead of being like 30 or I guess this album's what, like 26, 27-ish minutes. It's like it's not just pure groove the whole time because you could get bored even in that short duration. So they do a nice job kind of, you know, fucking with you or kind of messing with the pace a little bit, adding in those kind of caustic, ungroovy bits to kind of keep you off balance throughout.
Yeah, and then track 4, 4.5.
Yes.
There's so much catchiness in that one.
Yeah.
I wish I could produce the sound with my like stupid voice making the noises.
Yeah, we should not try to do a spoken word version of this. That would be cringy as fuck. It would be kind of funny, but looking, you know, in a couple years looking back, man, I would hate myself. Yeah, there's something interesting in that track too. Like I felt like there was I don't know if it's just like the note or the progression, but there's kind of like this somberness that kind of seeps into it, kind of like this. There's just like this little rust of like depression, kind of caked on the guitars. I don't know if you got that vibe.
Yeah, I got it. I can see that for sure.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of a nice way to just, instead of it being just these crushing guitars, like it kind of adds, you know, like they kind of tinker a bit with that, so it still makes that sound a little fresh, at least while you're listening to that track. It doesn't, you know, it just makes it a little more. Are there other tracks that you?
I really dug
really
the minute-long instrumental track, "Vow of Obedience."
Yeah, that one was great too.
It's just a fucking beatdown train that never stops coming.
Yeah, I almost felt like when I listened to that, I felt like if you were kind of trapped in like you were trapped in a building with an earthquake and there's just like cylinder blocks or some shit just like falling all around you. It's just kind of just like these, like just like this massive wall of just like unending, like just like this unending riff, and there's like no rhythm, no groove, nothing. It's just a shit show. Yeah. And I think that is a night, again, I mean, it's only a minute long, but it almost kind of like the title, like the Quantum Eraser. It seems to kind of erase it, like it kind of like wipes away some of the, not, it doesn't like get rid of the grooves, but it kind of helps cleanse the palette for, you know, the next 5 songs that come after it. Like it's kind of like a nice way to break up the pace of the album so you don't feel like you've been listening to the same thing over and over again. I guess when you look at this, since it's 11 tracks, the Vow of Obedience is literally halfway through it. Yeah. So it kind of serves as a nice turning point or a nice respite. I mean, a respite in the most cacophonous sense. So
it was the opposite of a respite. It's kind of like,
yes, a bludgeoning, a cudgeling, a brain cleaving, whatever you want to call it.
But yeah, I like Doormat a lot too. It's like a
That's a great
darker
one.
tone. I kind of got more doomy vibes on that one.
Yes.
And there's another one where I'm like, dude, how is this 3 guys? There has to be
Yep.
more. Are they lying to us? But,
No, I don't.
Wow. They're
Yeah.
so chunky.
Yes. Not them themselves, like they are not themselves.
No,
But no. Yeah, and I do like that track a lot too. Yeah, it's definitely like kind of has some. It's kind of contaminated a bit with some of those grindy bits as well, and it kind of teeters on like that unhinged feeling where it's like you get some slow vibes and it kind of goes a little ape shit for a few seconds and starts to kind of lose. It starts to kind of like lose control, and then it kind of falls back into that sludgy, doomy plotting. So there's a lot of nice dynamics going on in this one.
And then you got the next one, Delayed Choice, and it's just a 22-second kind of drum solo thing.
Yeah.
And that guy is pretty badass too.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's all over some cool like tonal feedback.
Right.
Blaring out.
Yeah, and then I think, we're talking a good bit, but I think of the last track, Oblivion's kind of a nice way that they end this. You kind of get this nice. To me, it seems to really kind of embrace the doom side. It seems to be kind of like one of the slower misanthropic, kind of driving into your skull, like very slow. Yeah, I kind of get that. That's kind of, I don't know if it's like completely accurate to say that, but it feels like that song is kind of a pretty, like a pretty passionate embrace.
Yeah, I can
fervent
see that.
embrace of that.
It's like somebody's literally holding, like a stake to your
Right.
skull and just pounding it.
Right.
With a
Right.
sledgehammer.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say about this one though? On the whole, what'd you think of this one by the end of it?
I loved it. I don't know how many times I listened to this in the car,
Yeah.
but I would just start it over again once it ended.
Yep. It's pretty quick, and this is definitely one of the more top contenders for me for one of my favorite albums I've stumbled across this year. Just in terms of like how heavy it is and how berating it is. I really love it, and just the grooves. And some parts of it, some people, some folks may, some of it does definitely feel like it's rather simple in certain passages because just how like repetitive it is, but the way it just kind of builds these grooves, it just kind of, I don't know, and it there's so much animosity behind it. Like there's so much anger when I listen to it. Like I don't feel like it's not like I want to hurt somebody, but it just makes me just I don't know. I really want to see this in a live setting as
You're
well.
pumped. Yeah, I would love to see these guys live.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. So what do you?
In fact, I think I would go up to you to see them live together.
Oh, would you? Would you? Wow, that's
I might consider.
The first time I've been living in Oregon for fucking 8 years, and that'd be the first time you drive your ass up here. God damn, dude, really? Jesus Christ! All right.
Yeah, and Secret Cutter might make it happen.
Yeah. Well, they're from Pennsylvania. I don't know what they're. I really don't know. How often they tour? If they've ever really come over to the West Coast, I'll have to do some digging.
I hope they will.
Yeah, I hope this album serves them well, and I hope they get a lot of attention from this, and I hope it, kind of pushes them further out into the metal hemisphere and gets them more exposure, because this is definitely something. If you're really into heavy music, I would say this is high. This is very high on the list for one of the heaviest things I've heard this year. It's heavy, groovy, misanthropic. There's a lot of energy to this record, and it's really a pretty brief listen, honestly. Like, yeah, as you said, every time I listen to it, I'm like, yep, I can listen to that again. Sure, like let's just go at it again, no problem.
You've been listening to Voices from Corners Unknown, episode 13. This one was a fun one, and I enjoyed a lot of the music on here, and I hope you guys do too. And yeah, feedback. We keep asking, and hopefully we'll get some eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. We appreciate everybody who listens, and yeah, we hope you're all doing well, and you'll hear from us, in probably a few weeks in the next episode. So thank you for giving this some time, and thank you for giving these bands your time. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.